Today we're going to be talking about designing for your space. Now, what essentially that means is, I'm not going to walk into a, I don't know, a modern mansion and start putting antiques inside of it.
Exactly.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So designing for your space. Let's get started. Take it away.
Well, first of all, I think when you're designing your space, you need to kind of figure out what you're working with and what your goals are.
What your budget is as well.
That's going to be a big factor in what you decide and the direction you need to go. But I think also you need to figure out kind of what feels good to you. Design is a lot about feeling. I mean, really, it's what feels good.
And what looks good. It's all about look.
I think it's feel more than look myself.
Okay, well.
Because you have to feel comfortable in the space.
I don't. You think my couch is comfortable? Absolutely not. It just looks beautiful. It's not comfortable, but it looks great.
I, on the other hand, would prefer to be comfortable and not have it look good.
And I guess that's where we meet in the middle. So, get the best of both worlds.
I think that we, with our properties, frankly, we didn't really...
Are you reading the notes or no? You're just gone rogue.
I like going rogue. I think that, first of all, you've got to figure out the space you're working with, and so it really depends. Let's just take the one in my home to start, okay? It's a basement apartment. When you hear basement, what do you think?
Dark,
dank,
small, dank.
Dark, dank. Yeah.
No, I think dank is different now.
It's good?
Yeah, I think so.
Really? No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
I
Dank
think so.
is bad.
Like that's
no, dark and dank. Well,
anyway, it's small, cozy, dark.
Yeah, it's small, it's dark, and I think one of the things that a goal for me as the owner was, how can I make this bright and happy and feeling bigger? Those were my goals going into designing that property.
And you take a look at the space and decide what you need to change and how your design will change it to make it, better.
Exactly. to reach those goals,
right,
really.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what, and I mean, honestly, the first thing that we decided to do was change out the light fixtures, because that really added light.
Brightness.
Yeah, light makes bright. And
light makes bright. Yes, it does. Thank you.
And makes the appearance of things being brighter and bigger, really.
And happier.
And
lighter.
Yeah.
And more open.
And that's why we changed those light fixtures out, but we also added the sort of risky move of painting a wall seafoam green. I mean, I think that was a risky move.
And I think adding that seafoam, lighter colored, mind you, accent wall, works well for it because it makes it feel more homey. But it was a risk. It was a risk because we could have risked closing off and making the space feel smaller.
Yep. But going with that brighter color, the hope was to brighten, and it did. I think it did achieve that.
I think it did as well.
Yeah.
So window wells are gross, and you have those in a basement apartment. They're ugly, they're dingy. They add to that sort of cramped, small, gross, dank feel.
Yes.
So what we did was we went in there, completely cleaned it out.
Yep. And I think that was really the most important step in designing that little window well, is cleaning it out. And when we say cleaned it out, all of the,
it took hours.
It took hours. The window well itself is aluminum, and we literally wiped that down from top to bottom. Any cobweb or spider or anything got cleaned off for sure.
Then what we did was we added some white rocks to sort of brighten it up, but we still wanted to make it feel natural for the space, And you want to make it feel natural for the space. It's outdoors, so you're gonna decorate it to look like it's outdoors, So you put in the white water rock or river rock or whatever. You put in succulents, you put in colorful, bright flowers and hanging wall succulents and air plants and different things like that to make it seem bright and, lush. You know what I mean? Instead of the opposite, which was dark and dank.
Yeah, and you got to design for not just the space, not just the goals of the property owner, but the guests that you are trying to attract as well, I think is what you're trying to say. So you got to be mindful of all of those factors when designing that space.
And how much do you think that altogether just for that property was spent for the furnishing? Couple thousand?
Yeah.
Two?
Oh yeah.
2,000?
Yep.
So, we didn't splurge. We didn't, buy the most expensive items. We fit it for the space and for the pricing that we know we can garner on that property.
Absolutely. Right.
So we have this other one that we just worked on a few months ago called Vibrant Eclectic Condo. The space in and of itself, it's a 1-bedroom apartment that has modern updates, but it still feels a little dark, feels a little dingy. It's on the 2nd floor, so it's not getting the best light exposure. It has some brick accent walls. Although it does have those modern touches, it definitely has a more underground kind of feel.
Yeah,
you know
I
what
would
I mean?
say definitely more.
And so with that one, we definitely needed to keep the design and the furnishings modern, but maybe brighten it up a bit, and make it a little funky and a little different, because the property itself is a little different, And again, the clientele for that property is a little bit younger, swinging, because it's in the middle of the city, essentially.
Correct.
So I know one of our things that we wanted to do was add as much color as we could while still staying consistent. So we have these pops of color along with these white and these black undertones.
Yep. Sort of gray, white, black
blue
undertones.
And then pops of blue, green, and a little bit of red or orange.
Yellow.
Yep.
As well as in there.
And so that sort of gave it that vibrant, eclectic feel. And we use the term eclectic because a lot of the furnishings and design that we're getting is stuff that we've DIY'd ourselves, stuff that we've found and refurbished, and different things like that that have our own sort of personal touch on them. So they're going to have a more eclectic feel.
One of the things we do is search out inexpensive furnishings, and if we see a good deal, we snatch it up at that time, whether we need it or not. And we have a storage unit where we keep all of our things because we know that at some point we may acquire a property that it makes sense for.
Yep.
And
or we may be helping a client that it makes sense for.
Exactly.
And I think one thing that we look for when snatching up those inexpensive items is maybe something that we can add our own personal touch to.
Right. So even though it may not look great on paper or right when we get it, we look at it and think, I don't know. We'll take it if it's a good enough deal, really, we will. And knowing that we can always add our own touch to it later on and make it fit our space.
Fit it for the space, exactly.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to our another one, the one that you furnished all by yourself.
And I did good.
You did. Trendy Bohemian.
I feel some sarcasm coming over here.
There's no sarcasm.
This property has those sort of modern touches, but it does have that lofty, grungy kind of feel with some brick accents. It's a little more bright, a little more open already. So one thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to complement that sort of grungy type of bohemian feel that it already had. So I know the people booking it, are going to want a trendy bohemian apartment because
that's the name.
Well, yeah. Gee, thanks. Jesus.
Had to get a word in there.
Anyway, so what I did was I added a lot of fake
dirt.
I added a lot of foliage and plants and greenery along with very neutral tones. Neutral, modern, slick designs, neutral tones, whites, grays, blacks. That's about it, really. There's nothing vibrant, nothing poppy about it other than the plants. The plants, the foliage, that greenery I wanted to come out because, it already had that sort of lofty bohemian feel, and I just sort of amplified that with the furnishings and adding crystals in there, So you just add in a few crystals, add in some...
And they're booking like crazy.
They are! I mean, that is probably one of our more successful properties.
Yeah, I would say. And I think that's one of the things that, as a entity, we can really help people decide, because I think what happens to a lot of property owners is they're very connected to their properties and they want to design it as if they're going to be living there, and that may not necessarily, it probably isn't the best.
I mean, look at your house. Your furnishings are awful.
They are not.
She likes them. Again, I don't know that this would be great for an Airbnb, at least at its current level of design.
Well, it's not. Airbnb right now. So
Exactly.
it works for us because it's comfortable. And that was one of our goals. However, my point being, I think a lot of property owners would want to furnish something as if they were going to live there. And that's really one of the detriments to, I think, what happens. You're going to have a great place. It's going to be furnished the way you would like it. But guess what? You're not staying there.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to Vintage Cottage, which, has sort of a old sounding connotation to it, but it came about simply because some of the furnishings that we were able to acquire for this particular space, it had a real vintage eclectic feel to it.
Yeah.
And I think that really set the tone for the rest of the design in that space.
And well, also, I mean, let's be honest, there's nothing modern about the actual property.
No. Oh, God,
the kitchen's not modern. It's
Nope.
not very updated.
Nope.
It's kind of,
Boring.
basic.
Yeah.
It's basic.
Basic, boring.
And a little old. It is a little older because clearly it was designed quite a few years ago.
Yep,
and
the
nobody's
property
updated
itself, the building itself, nothing's been updated in quite some time.
Correct. So we acquired that furniture with that in mind, that, how are we gonna, because we're still in that market where that younger clientele is gonna be booking for the most part. So how are we still gonna market to them without having these modern furnishings, We use the furniture in a way and use the space in a way to still market it to that younger demographic.
Even though it's a less updated, less modern space.
Correct.
We still wanted to attract a younger clientele because we know we're in the city center and that's primarily what it's going to attract. And how do we do that
And so primarily we were finding very cute vintage furniture and spicing it up a bit and, editing our photos and attracting the guests in a way that made it look sort of that vintagey feel to it, And I think by adding on Cottage onto the name, we have those aspects that you would typically see in sort of like a little cottage, and that makes it seem a little more homey.
Yeah, definitely. I think, anything you can do to add homey touches, cozy, feel, people are going to appreciate that because when they come to an Airbnb or a short-term rental versus a hotel, they are looking for that homey feel.
Yeah.
They don't want to be in that cold environment that you can't flip off your shoes and turn on the TV and kind of relax for an evening.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we strive to do, as designers and when we're designing properties and helping clients design their Airbnb properties or even their personal properties, it's just about creating that home environment, that home feel.
Right, where you feel at home because that might vary from person to person.
Exactly. But you want to catch as many people in that clientele that you can.
Absolutely.
So you need to make it basic enough to catch all those people, but still niche enough to get those people that you're targeting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I'm Connor Ashley.
And I'm Carla Conner.
We're the mother-son real estate and design duo.
We are here to help you invest in properties.
Now you can make a lot of money doing this.
We're your people.